Take your mind into the wonderful world of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kinetic Hour. Conversations with you and guests. With your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. That's me.
All right. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Kinetic Hour. I am your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. Welcome one, welcome all, as usual. And as always, I'm simulcasting live here on Facebook and live on Instagram. So as always, simulcasting, so that way I can get the word out on both platforms simultaneously. As always, go to my YouTube channels and subscribe. One is here, the Kinetic Hour, and the other is Kinetic Fit and Wellness Info. That's Kinetic, Kennetic. The Kinetic Hour. Subscribe, click thumbs up, leave your comment. Tell everyone you know about the Kinetic Hour. And I do the best that I can to make every show as lively as possible and try to do some entertaining at the same time. There's a lot going on. I haven't been on in, it's been 2 weeks now since I was last on. Last I was on, I had Dr. Layla Ali on as my guest. So I want to thank her for being my guest. And I did finally get her book in the mail here. And this will segue into my topic of discussion for today. And this is great. First, I want to just talk about the day's events and what's going on before I get into this month, which the month of October is over half over now. So we only have, I think, a week left. So I'm going to talk about a few things, actually, 2 specific things. But before that, just some just random news. I like talking about political stuff every so often. And because you're not going to see a lot of presidential political news right now, because the biggest news on the planet right now is this war, cultural war, this quote race war, if you will, this holy war. Some might view it as a holy war because these type of wars seem to continuously reoccur or reveal themselves. Every so often, every presidential cycle or every other presidential cycle, there's always some sort of war occurring or going on in somewhere 10,000 miles away, currently what they call the Middle East. Israel has been bombed to high heaven by what we call terrorists, or what they call Hamas, or some people refer to it as ISIS. Similar to what we know as Al-Qaeda, or what we knew as Al-Qaeda, which we know that was created through American intelligence, or the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. And we know this. I mean, you can look all this stuff up. I mean, all the quote terrorist factions that just seem to pop up out of nowhere, usually there are some type of American ties to these groups or these terrorist organizations. But nonetheless, there is war waging right now over in Israel or Gaza, these regions over in the Middle East where war is occurring quite frequently. Innocent women, innocent men, innocent children are dying by the hundreds through bombs and ground attacks, with these terrorist organizations doing what they can to occupy more land and have more control, which is what war is about. And we always have our hands in war. Always. America is the war capital of the planet. There is no war that we're not involved in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And we also love to help fund wars, whether it's the giving of the purchasing or selling of ammunition, negotiations with the respective leaders of these countries. And war has always been the biggest financial moneymaker or the biggest moneymaker. War generates more revenue than the pharmacy industry or the pharmaceutical industry globally. War is the number one finance generator. War. That's why we see it happening all over the world in certain respective countries. War. And it's usually between two countries that have differing beliefs about either policy or their way of religious practice. Or in our case, in America, since there's military bases in, I think, almost 200 countries around the planet, which means we're the police of the planet. We're the cops. We're the global cops of the planet, because no other country has military bases here on any of our shores. But we have our warships on the docks of multiple countries all over the world. There's almost no country where you don't see US military. We're everywhere. Why? Because we're the military state, or what's called a city state military, Washington, D.C. So we will happily finance war, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, all of them love war because it generates revenue. You spend revenue, but you make it back in the rebuilding of these countries that have been literally destroyed by tanks and bombs that are manufactured right here in the United States of America. So that's what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. War, and more war. More bombs going off, more people losing their lives unexpectedly because of tyrants of the planet that want control over certain regions so they can have it for themselves. They can do what they will with it. And we're here on the side, seeing it on television, seeing it on the news, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 2 weeks, getting all the general public riled up. And we see protests. I'm here just south of Los Angeles. All over Los Angeles, we see protests. Israeli or Jewish, what they call Jewish, European Jewish people protesting, Palestinian people here in America protesting. telling people to leave their country alone, leave our people alone. And again, war is chaos, and chaos is war. And here in America, I think most of the general public is not really a big fan of war, but our political figures love it. Our political figures love it. They love war. So we see that, and we're probably going to continue to see it over the next few weeks. War, which has been a distraction for other political news, such as our former president, the Donald. And I like talking about the Donald because he's funny. You know, I've always liked watching the Donald because he's a character. He's a character. And but he's a character that's been in quite a bit of legal trouble over the past several months. And all news stations are reporting it except for a couple of conservative networks that just refuse to report on the fact that the Donald is in court in New York for his business practices or his fraudulent business practices. And right now, it's just a matter of how much he's going to end up owing the state of New York for all the people or small companies that he frauded through his business, or jacking up the valuation of his respective properties in New York. And so he's in court for that right now as we speak. And he's if he doesn't close his mouth, if he doesn't close his mouth, because we know that Donald loves to talk about people that are, you know, just trying to see that justice is served by the people in the state of New York, because the people of New York brought this case. The people, after a 25 year period of watching his business dealings, and after filing bankruptcy, I think 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. So just that alone tells me that there's something not completely right or correct about his business practices. And it's all coming to a head in New York court. So we'll see how that evolves. At the same time, he's also one of the 19 co-conspirators in a case that will get underway pretty soon, which is a case in the state of Georgia for making attempts to overturn a free and fair election. I'm looking right here because I'm looking at the people on Instagram Live. Welcome to the Kinetic Hour. But yeah, the Donald, you know, making these outrageous statements again, as he loves to do. Just this past weekend, or just last week, towards the end of the week, 2 of the 19 co-conspirators made a decision to go ahead and make a plea deal, plead guilty. They pled guilty. One is Sidney Powell, a former Trump lawyer, campaign lawyer, and also Kenneth Chesebro. Both of them took plea deals and pleaded guilty for their role in making attempts to overturn a free and fair election in the state of Georgia. and also voter intimidation, um, uh, you know, fraudulent fake voters, uh, all kind of nonsense that has ruined their respective careers. I mean, Sidney Powell is a prestigious lawyer. Now she will more than likely never be able to practice ever again. And we saw both of their court proceedings, or at least I did. I saw Sidney Powell's most of it. I only saw a few minutes of Kenneth Chesebro, but nonetheless, they pretty much had the same deals because they are pleading guilty to their role in this, or in this case. Now, in exchange, they will have to testify against the other 17 co-conspirators, or whatever it is they know about the other 17 co-conspirators, including the Donald and his right-hand man at the time, Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York, the hero of 9/11, the one that was melting at the podium, him, Rudy Giuliani. And Sidney Powell is another one. Jenna Ellis is another one. It's the whole group. And now Donald is claiming that Sidney Powell was never his lawyer. She was never his lawyer. That was his statement in his tweets. You know, he loves to tweet a lot, or someone tweets for him, but or on his Truth Social website. He loves making different statements about people. When people make statements that go against his narrative, all of a sudden he has amnesia and he's never seen these people ever in his life. I don't know who she is, right? Sidney Powell, former Donald Trump lawyer and campaign lawyer, along with Rudy Giuliani. So what is he going to do if Rudy Giuliani decides to plead guilty? Is he going to say that he's never met Rudy Giuliani before? Is he going to have amnesia and say, oh, I don't know him. Never met him before in my life. Never even seen him before. Because this is what the Donald likes to do. Not take responsibility for his actions and plays the victim role. That's what he does best, play victim. And his current attorneys that can't seem to get him to close his mouth, which has gotten him into trouble with the judge in New York. But, you know, he has amnesia. He doesn't know who these people are. I think he's trying to get the defamation case against the woman that he was found guilty of sexual assault twice. He was found guilty. He's trying to get that decision overturned. Gotta love the Donald. So, and this is a man that still wants to run for president. I mean, did you see his Meet the Press interview? I mean, did you see his deposition from last year regarding the Georgia case and regarding the New York state with his New York case with his business practices? I challenge all Trump supporters to just go and peruse those two, those two. Oh gosh, these two cases and his deposition, especially the one, the New York case, the one that's going on right now, his deposition. Yeah, Donald is really, he just go look. He doesn't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue. I mean, you can tell when he's at the podium doing his speeches that he's pretty much saying the same talking points over and over and over and over again. Never anything solid or concrete about what his plan is or plan of action is for him to have a second term as being president of the United States. Why does he want to be president so bad that he's willing to go through all of this just to be president? Just to be president. But we'll see what happens as this case goes on and on. I think Michael Cohen, his former attorney, you know, the one that was handling the money so he can pay off, so the Donald can pay off his affairs with pornography stars. I think it was two of them, two women, one Stormy Daniels and the other one is on the tip of my tongue. I was just looking at a report on her the other day. I cannot think of her name right now, but it may come to me before I wrap this up. But nonetheless, Michael Cohen is supposed to take the stand sometime this week. And Michael Cohen is the only attorney that worked for Donald Trump that has actually spent time in jail time. He's the only one thus far that's done jail time and probation or house arrest. On house arrest, I think he did 2.5 years of jail time. And then I think he did another 1.5 years or 2 of house arrest. But now he's totally free to speak. And he has been speaking about all the stuff that he knows and how all of this is it's a joke because he knows who the guilty parties are. I mean, he admitted to what he did on Donald's behalf, and the Donald threw him under the bus, his own attorney. So is he going to do this with the other attorneys involved in this specific case? I mean, he already said he doesn't know who Sidney Powell is. She was never my lawyer. So Michael Cohen is supposed to take the stand this week, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's this week. And will Donald be there to hear all the testimony? We'll see. He's supposed to be there, but we'll see. It'll be really interesting because Michael Cohen got to see firsthand, just like Sidney Powell got to see firsthand, just like Jenna Ellis got to see firsthand all the dealings, all the wheeling and dealings, just like Rudy Giuliani, who was probably the closest. He got to see all the wheelings and dealings of the Trump administration. I mean, Trump pardoned, I think, 2 or 3 of people that were in his administration. He pardoned them because they were doing criminal activity. And people still want him to be president, which is fine. You know, hey, we're in America. But it's going to be an uphill battle for him. He might be leading in the polls still with his respective Republican colleagues. But we'll see how it all unfolds because the presidential election, we still have a whole year to go. And we know that it's going to be a lot happening between now and this time next year before it's time for the public to vote on who they want to be the next president of the United States. Will it be sloppy Joe Biden? Will it be Mr. Agent Orange, the Donald? Will it be Kamala Harris? I don't know. Some people are throwing Gavin Newsom, governor of California. They're throwing him in the mix. And Gavin Newsom was in China meeting with some respective leaders in China regarding climate change. I think he's making his rounds of, meeting with people on this specific world stage, getting him ready for the big stage, because people have been hinting at a possibility that he may become the next president by default, because Joe Biden may not be physically capable to handle another 4 years. Hell, the Donald may not even be able to handle another 4 years physically. He may have a heart attack by the time all this stuff is over, with all 91 counts of various infractions or misdemeanors or felonies. Now, some people are debating on whether he will actually do prison time. It's possible. Some people think it's unlikely, but it is possible. I mean, Michael Cohen did jail time, and he was Trump's lawyer and was doing Trump's bid, and he went to jail. So is that a hint of things to come? We know Sidney Powell won't spend time in jail because she took a plea deal. We know Kenneth Chesebro won't go to jail because he took a plea deal. And actually, their plea deal was a lot more lenient than what Michael Cohen got for giving money to a porn star. Oh, and here we have 2 of the 19 co-conspirators committing federal fraud to try to have a free and fair election overturned in the state of Georgia. And there's a couple of other states, I believe, that are going to be coming up as well, for the same case of trying to overturn an election. And because Georgia was definitely a red state once upon a time, but it's not currently. Will it go back to being a red state? Possibly. But as of right now, it's a blue state, which is why all this controversy is taking place in the state of Georgia. So we'll see what happens with that in the future as we go along.